This week on the Faculty Factory podcast.
I think the interesting thing that has developed out of this is that not everything at our place is going to come out of our office in faculty development. We've had some really good fill in our library because we have it's a place that technically fits in with our health sciences. And so it's been a good access point for some of the services that used to be provided out of faculty development that maybe need to be supported by a larger audience. And for us, that's statistical support and writing support that are coming out of there. So,
now, hold the phone. Yeah. You are the first person we've talked to on the podcast in almost a year now who has mentioned the library as a resource for faculty affairs and faculty development work. We've talked, of course, people mention human resources and organization development and education departments. You're the first person who's mentioned library. Welcome back to the Faculty Factory podcast, friends. On today's episode, we have Dr. Leigh Patterson, the Associate Dean for Faculty Development at East Carolina University, the Brody School of Medicine. Hi, Leigh. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Kim. Thank you.
Well, thanks so much for joining us on the podcast. We've been having some great conversations, and I remember meeting you a couple years ago when I went down to East Carolina University, and we talked, and I remember you were really enmeshed in your emergency medicine clinical work. So how in the world did you end up as the Associate Dean in Faculty Development?
Well, I ended up here kind of as my own career evolved a little bit. This isn't originally what I thought I would do. I was a residency director in emergency medicine for almost 10 years. I think I'm still probably the most sympathetic to PDs as I am to anybody in the academic medicine. But while I was doing that job, I went back to school and got a master's in adult education because a number of the challenges I had in that job, working with curriculum, really dealing with accreditation and sort of changing accreditation standards, were a real challenge for me. And I went back and got a master's sort of one course at a time. And as I did more of that, I had a number of epiphanies getting that degree, but one of them was kind of a shift in my own reaction to my faculty. So when you're a residency director, sometimes your bigger challenges are your faculty, not your trainees. You have faculty who maybe don't know how, or at the time I thought they just weren't doing things I needed them to do, like give lectures or evaluate residents or help us remediate a resident. And as I was going through the masters and doing projects for them, I did a project on evaluating learners, and I had to formally survey my faculty, and I was really stunned to see how few of my faculty had gotten good training on how to evaluate somebody or how to give feedback to a learner. And I can remember that semester thinking, and it's almost like you're kind of deflated. I'm not angry at you anymore. I had that moment of, it's you're not doing this to me. You actually don't know how to do the thing I keep begging you to do. Yeah. Right. You didn't, you don't know how to do this. So I'm upset. And it was just a moment of this isn't about you. And the longer I was doing that, the more I enjoyed sort of shifting a little bit of that focus on faculty. And I think there comes a time for many of us in a role we have where we need to make a change so that we keep evolving ourselves. And I had started to help out in faculty development and help out in curriculum. I was helping the former dean and doing some programming in the space on different teaching techniques. And I started doing more programming around our institution on feedback and evaluation. And then the institution was ready to make a change and needed to do some shifting in academic affairs, and they needed to put somebody in as the interim. And I got the opportunity. And for me, it was really right at that 10-year mark. And I thought, I think I'm ready to make a change. And it was wonderful for me. I think I moved into that role and thought, I can feel the ideas coming back. I think sometimes in that same role for so long, you sometimes run out of the fresh ideas and the fresh perspective, and you've got to move a little bit. But a lot of it for me was, I think our bigger success as an institution needs to be a bit of a shift in focus for me from the learner to the faculty. Yeah. And it's been a great move, but I did begin in a very different place.
Well, I love that story and how it started out. Sounds like a challenge or a puzzle or a source of frustration that you described this disconnect with faculty. And I'm curious, a chicken and egg thing. What came first? Your work with accreditation standard changes or your interest in the master's in adult education? Or were they kind of right there alongside each other?
I think what came first was struggling with accreditation and struggling with answering to an accrediting body. At least in that case, it was the ACGME, and sometimes not even understanding the question or the task I was being asked to do as the residency director, and not understanding the background, not understanding the process. And so I started the coursework more to just help me do the job that I wanted to do and the job that I loved for a long time. I started the coursework to do that. And it was probably about 4 courses into the master's that I thought, gosh, actually, I really like this. And I like getting to think about this. And I like doing some of the projects for these courses. And the course, I did my master's at ECU, and in the College of Education, they are very much focused on all of your papers and projects should be directly applicable to your job, or for those of us who are real adult learners coming back while we're working a regular job, that we draw from our experience. So
yeah,
I had done several different projects like that. One of them was a paper on sort of the first-hand experience of a PD doing a remediation, and I just, over time, doing that, found myself more and more drawn to the teacher, where I really, when I began my career, was very, very much focused on the learners. And I don't regret that. It just is a shift I think I experienced I love the students. I still love teaching. I still love working with residents and medical students, but I am more interested in, more challenged by, more enthusiastic about the challenges that the teacher faces than I am the challenges that the learner faces.
A great story. Another great reminder how, through adversity, we can find opportunities. And look, you probably, 10 years later, as you described, you never, ever would have imagined, someday I'm going to be an associate dean for faculty development, especially starting off MD in emergency medicine. You're like, that was not even on your radar. But these opportunities sometimes, I think it's, of course, your typical student and where you came upon a challenge and thought, I need to learn more about this. So this is probably something we all share, that thirst for knowledge and growth. And again, voila, who would have known that would have opened up a whole new, a gift that you were given that you now have opportunity to develop and then share that passion. Thanks for sharing that story.
Sure.
So talk to me about 10 years go by, you're put in this interim position. I imagine, despite your enthusiasm and like newfound empathy and appreciation for those gaps, between teachers and learners, you must have had lots of challenges and grappling with issues, that you weren't even, aware of course. How did that transition period go for you as an interim?
I enjoyed being an interim, and I really appreciated my institution giving me a chance to do that, because I really did get to try on the job. And our institution had done what I think many schools have done, after the financial challenges in the mid 2000s. We had really cut the resources in our Office of Faculty Development. We had shrunk it down quite a bit. And so when I was asked to step in as interim, I was half an FTE and I had half an admin.
Oh, wow.
And with a plan of let's grow this, but we had shrunk the resources there to the point where I honestly didn't, for a couple of years I worked here, I didn't know we had an associate dean for faculty development. And so I got the very daunting challenge in some way to start to rebuild that and regrow that. I got a lot of support and a lot of enthusiasm for it, but I got to try it on while we were beginning to think about what would this look like if we re-expanded these. Some of the challenges that I really liked, I had stepped out of a role that is very administrative. A residency director answers to accrediting bodies and licensing boards and a lot of administration in that job, and I kind of stepped out of that into I'm here to help you. I am here to provide the programming and the counseling and the mentoring and I'm here if you need me. And I really enjoyed that. But over the time I had as an interim, which was a year and a half, I had another sort of shift in my thinking, which was, while I really enjoy not being the heavy or not being the administrator that has that kind of responsibility as a residency director, I'm seeing that maybe if we don't have some more of those must-haves, policies that really push us to have faculty engage with the resources we have, that push us to develop those, that I won't have anybody down there. And so I had good success. I had people interested. It probably took us a year to get everyone aware that, yes, actually several days a week, someone is, in our case, in the basement. Our office is on the ground floor. Faculty are foundational, but our office is down there. And so it took me a year to get people to reliably think, oh, there's somebody down there, and I could send my faculty member who's struggling. And I liked at first not having that burden of, we must have these offerings, we must make faculty come get resources. And I've kind of shifted. I had a real shift in that of, we're going to need to habituate some of this. We're going to need to move as an office into a little bit of advocacy around policy, and then really think about how we get faculty into our resources, and how we require faculty to accept some help. And not just say, okay, we offer a great programming on how to flip your classroom. Come by if you want. And so I had some of that challenge in there. I had a little bit of a challenge when you're rebuilding and regrowing to know what to focus on first. And I still, now sort of 3 years into it, I still am kind of grappling with that. Do I devote how much of the office's time and energy and resources goes into institution interventions? How much of it is devoted to one-on-one support for faculty and programming and individual access, faculty by faculty, and how much of it is advocacy? And sort of where do we, I really believe we have to have an office that just advocates in some way for faculty success, that is 100% the faculty ally. Even if that faculty member is not doing what they need to do, somebody's got to be their ally in this space. But if you don't take advantage, if you don't reach out and accept, if what we try to offer, what's my role then? And with your chair, with your dean, how do we do that? So we're still kind of sorting through where all do we devote our energies. And we're a smaller school, so the upsides is we're never far removed from each other at all. But the downside is that's all of us in the boat together. It's a small army. So
how many faculty?
How you exert that? We have about 500 faculty across the space, and that includes some affiliate faculty in the community that we have.
Now, I'm curious about this. You talked about how the office had been scaled back during the recession and finance struggles and challenges, and then built up. And during that interim period where you were there, you were kind of regrowing that. Can you help us understand some of the culture and politics around how you get the stakeholders to buy into that concept of, well, we just cut this back. Why would we want to build it up? Or like, what data or, anecdotal evidence did you have, or did someone else have, to support this idea of now we need to scale this back up again? I'm curious how those decisions get made. We cut back, no, put money in, no, pull back, no, put in. So can you paint a picture for us how that looked? Sure.
And I will tell you, the longer I was doing the work, the easier it was to find examples where people said, oh, we could use help here. Some of the data came to us in the form of promotion and tenure challenges. We had faculty and departments not get promoted and not get tenure, and that was fairly unheard of for us. We had done a good job historically identifying and getting people help that they needed, and getting them ready, and not sending them to up the process. We're a state institution, not sending them up the line only to get rejected. Right. And at least during my interim period, we had a pretty significant challenge where we had some folks not get promoted and not get tenure. And in the analysis of why that happened, we discovered a number of gaps and who's supposed to be helping you with this. And we discovered that we needed more than just a departmental committee. I think like many medical schools that do have traditional tenure, we do have a growing number of folks who are fixed term. And we had begun to run into some departments that had lost their institutional memory because they'd gone a few years without somebody going through the process. And so one place some data came to us of we don't have enough of this has been in our promotion and tenure process. One place that it has come to us has been, of course, through our own school accrediting process. As you have increasing standards for education, you need someone helping educators educate. As we have increasing needs for success in places, you find the holes that way. So the accrediting process highlighted a number of places where we had that, and then one place that has unexpectedly highlighted that for us is some challenges we had in chair leadership. So a little over a year ago, we were recruiting for a chair in one of our departments, and we needed to put an interim chair in, and we discovered we really didn't have an internal option for an interim chair. And I was asked to step in, really thinking that would be a much more short-term fix. And as I walked into the space and sort of looked around and met with faculty and met with staff, it became apparent to us that we had places and pockets in our institution where we hadn't had any oversight, anyone checking in, anyone checking on faculty. And we hadn't had, it wasn't really anyone's responsibility to do some analyses of, is everyone okay here? Are we, and why are we losing faculty here? And what is happening in here? And those faculty had not had anywhere to go. And that became apparent in that process. And so I've had it come to me from several different places. During the time I was an interim, we got a new dean who came to us from an institution that had certainly much more, had a larger group of people working on, and a much more diverse group of people working on faculty development, faculty advancement, faculty excellence. And so one of his early moves was to say, this isn't going to work. We need more of this, and we need faculty affairs reporting directly to the dean's office. And so we had a lot of support from just somebody coming in from the outside saying, hey, we do it differently other places, and I liked that, and so we need to make a change here. So I had it coming from several places. The promotion and tenure really helped us in my office kind of catch fire, because we stepped in to help a department with individual faculty and then working with the chair, and then that spreads, and then the next thing I knew, every member of that department on the promotion and tenure committee was all set up to meet me, and I was interviewing all of their faculty candidates and helping them do an assessment relative to their promotion guidelines, and saying, okay, all right, here we go. Yeah. We can see some space in that. I think the interesting thing that has developed out of this is that not everything at our place is going to come out of our office in faculty development. Mm-hmm. We've had some really good fill in our library, because we have it's a place that technically fits in with our health sciences. And so it's been a good access point for some of the services that used to be provided out of faculty development that maybe need to be supported by a larger audience. And for us, that's statistical support and writing support that are coming out of there. So
now, hold the phone.
yeah.
You are the first person we've talked to on the podcast in almost a year now who has mentioned the library as a resource for faculty affairs and faculty development work. We've talked, of course, people mention human resources and organization development and education departments. You're the first person who's mentioned library. Tell us more about this writing support and stat support from the library.
Sure, and I wish I could take credit for it. I can't. This one's not my initiative. It's one we're collaborating to utilize and to promote. But we are one school out of 4 on our health sciences campus. And we used to provide writing support out of faculty development. When you look at it from a budget standpoint, it was tough. It was tough to re-add that back on again. And it was tough to figure out exactly where statistical support would come. And so our head librarian, Dr. Beth Ketterman, worked with our dean and felt like maybe out of our health sciences budget, we could anchor that at the library. And it offers us a couple of benefits. Our librarians, our medical librarians, are going to provide great counseling for you to do a lit search and how do you use your notation software? How do you use what we have here to help you start your project? And so if you anchor the statistician and then you anchor the writing support there, then you've got people anchored to resources within our institution.
Wow.
So we have 1 day a week that is dedicated time for statistical support and for writing support. And both of those folks have guidelines about what you need to do before you can come and bring your project with you. But you basically sign up on the library website. What we're working towards is a place where, so this right now is open access for us, but with the research dean, with the head of our library, we're working towards bringing our new faculty in, and this is one of those places where we have to say, you must do this. So maybe you don't really need them, but everybody on the tenure track is going once for a statistical consult, and everyone's going once for a writing consult and assessment. And we'll present this as new faculty. This is one of your resources. You get to jump the line. Everybody else has to wait behind you. But here's what we have. And because my work with the tenure folks who are not getting tenure or who are about to go up, who weren't ready, was really showed we had not, while we may have had resources because we didn't force you to go, you didn't know it was there, and the faculty who most needed to know weren't the faculty who were finding it, who were even looking to raise their hand and ferret it out on their own. And so we're really kind of trying to shift towards everybody has to go and meet with one of our 3 resources over at the library and anchor. So in that space. But I thought it was pretty creative. They put that over there.
It doesn't cost the faculty anything. They don't have to pay.
Right now it doesn't. And so we are exploring a cost-sharing strategy. Right now, the limited number of hours that we do have are supported by our health sciences budget. And as we grow the resource, then each college will contribute. And then for faculty who might want more help, then the department would contribute. And for departments who support and endorse a policy of let's require everybody to go, and then after that it's optional, we would ask them to contribute more so that we could begin to expand services.
So how does that work with your requiring faculty development of your faculty? So we all know the regulatory compliance online learning modules, kill us all. But how do you operationalize that X number of hours per year or term that a faculty member must participate in these things? How does that happen?
So we're working on that. I can't say we've perfected that yet. We have what we have trialed out of my office is for at least programming is a commitment to, if you will tell me when it is the right place for you, we will schedule that for you. So we are, providing some of our programming and some of our counseling at 7 a.m. in the morning, some of the time, not every day. We're coming in and giving programming from 6 to 7. in the evenings. Right. Again, not all the time, but if I get a commitment from your division, your unit, that this is the right time, this is the time that fits in your work schedule, then we'll flex and come to you. Operationalizing it for all our faculty, again, we're 500 strong and we're not all, we are probably roughly 60% clinical and 40% tenure track, or 60% fixed term and 40% tenure track. And so we don't, if we're operationalizing and focusing on the tenure track researchers and educators, then we really don't have as much, right, as many numbers that we have to tackle that way. But operationalizing that for that group of people, I think if we're flexible, here are the times that you have 6 months to do this, you have 6 months to do that. It's something we can accommodate. Yeah. And we can put in there, with identifying who gets priority in that. It's part of your annual evaluation. It does kill us to do all of those modules and to do all of that annual evaluation, but for the physician faculty, you've got to renew your license every year. You've got to do X number of CME on different topics depending on your area. Yeah. What's 1 hour, right, for your own personal career once in the first year you're here to come sit down with a writing specialist? Yeah. I think we can do it. I think we can push towards that. And I think, personally, I think we're going to have to do that with our junior folks, bringing them in and helping them get up and running. I
especially think that makes so much sense with your newbies. And I'm imagining that there's a test out, if you will, function. We're talking at Hopkins with the joy of medicine and burnout and all that with all these regulatory compliance online modules that we get threatened with, seems like weekly. You have to do this module, 3 days ago it was due, and it's only 4 hours, and you have to sit there and click through, all this content that our faculty said, well, can we test out of it? So, we're required to do so many things on a regular basis. If there were like a pre-test that would say, you still know it, you're good, that would save that time. It would be such a win for faculty. So I'm imagining you probably have some system in place, or where some of your your tenured or senior faculty will be, right, thank you very much, right, Leigh, but I have 150 150 I don't need to see anybody writing, or I'm a statistician, I don't need to go to stat support. Exactly.
And certainly it's, and for this, it's sort of, how are we sure we as an institution set you up to succeed? Right. How are we sure we didn't put a barrier up there? So I met week before last with one of our newest faculty in a department who came in with the rank of professor. So when he's coming, I had interviewed him for a department. I sat down with him. He wanted to come meet with me. I need to walk through what's available to me in faculty, and I need you to help catch me up on help me catch up on the institution and know where all the doors are, right, to get to these things. So this is somebody who's coming in with full professor, and one of his early questions to me was, what statistical support do I have and who do I have to ask and where do I go? And I thought, okay, if you're asking me this and you're still interested in how much help can I get to help drive my program, then my sell to a junior person who's entering is, I'm giving you, this is your one chance to get in the front of the line for resources and support we have. That's really how I would say this. And I wouldn't expect somebody who comes in, I certainly wouldn't have expected that professor to have to go. But his question to me was, how do I get there? Right. I know what I need. I know what I want. And I'm accustomed to sort of a system that's got to be navigated. I'd like you to help me shortcut this navigation. And so I don't envision this as more challenge. I envision this as, how can we as an institution at least shift the conversation some of the time to you and what you're supposed to get, and how do we know we as an institution did our part and held up our end of the bargain. I do think that, and I think you and I have talked about this a little bit when we've had conversations at the group on faculty affairs about what happens when we cut services for faculty. In the short term, it saves us some money, but in the long term, we turn around and have to ask ourselves, okay, when the faculty aren't succeeding and the faculty are really the backbone of the institution, what did we do to contribute to this, and did we do that? And so I certainly don't want to. I don't want to contribute to a faculty member's burnout, but I do want to figure out how are we sure we've done our part, and how are we sure that you do know where everything is. I've walked very intelligent, very well educated people who do much more complex medicine than I do through the tenure guidelines, and sort of watch them cross their eyes and struggle as they're trying to understand what are all the hurdles.
Right.
What does this look like? Are we sure? And I think, okay, in some cases, some of you transplant organs into other human beings, and yet the tenure guidelines are or what we need to do and how we need to get there is not. It is. It's opaque. It's an extra challenge. Why is this an extra hurdle? And so what can I do to remove the hurdles, and what can I do also to remind the institution and administration and leadership these things matter. These things have to be available.
Well, I like how partly the institutional commitment to the faculty member is evidenced by the annual review. You said this is part of the annual review form and annual review process, which to me shows me as a faculty member, other than or in addition to starting off an annual review with how much money are you making us, what's your RVU and how many patients are you seeing and how many grants do you have? Part of that conversation should be, how are you developing? Where are some gaps in your program? What do you need? What would help you be successful? So I like how you've institutionalized that as just part of the annual review process. And that to me is kind of telling me the story of how you are building a culture where it's expected that this is just part and parcel. This is how we take care of our own. You're part of us. You're in the family. So we're here to help you. And that to me I resonate with that, shifting the tenor of an office from one of remediation, where it's almost like the principal's office, where someone's, a learner is putting a bad report on you, or a patient has a report or a problem or there's some issue, and you get sent to the principal's office or the Office of Faculty Development for remediation, shifting that tenor to one of support. We are where people want to go there, that faculty view it as a one-stop shop, and there's lots of resources. And if you got a question, you go there. That feeling is a lot more, embracing and empowering versus someone waggling their finger at you. So it sounds like you have done a lot of work to building that culture of we're here for you, and we take your career seriously, and you mean something to us. You have meaning. You have value. You're important to us.
I hope so. We're still working on it. Some of this is still very much a work in progress, but it is. But I do think it's going to take us probably another 5 years to get us to a place where my faculty would say, "Yep, this is the institutionals. This is the tenor. This is the attitude that you're talking about they care about me, and this is the resource." Yeah.
And, we all struggle with that feeling of not having almost every interview we do here in the podcast is kind of a lot of that, a little bit of anxiety of, oh my gosh, am I not doing enough? And I'm not making a difference. And that everybody seems to come around to the fact that our GFA, our Group on Faculty Affairs family, is at least during that professional development conference, at least once a year, we can all look at each other and say, yeah, I see you. I hear you. I feel you. I get it. I'm doing the same thing. I'm walking the same walk, and it hurts, and I feel badly, and I never feel like I'm doing enough. I'm confused every day, as Dan Shapiro says. It's all that kind of we feel each other, and knowing despite that challenge that one little interaction with a faculty member, one eye contact, one meeting, one session, one whatever, can plant a seed that who knows where it'll grow. And who knows 10, 20 years from now, when we've transitioned out of these spaces, somebody will be talking and say, I remember, years ago, who I never would have known, but I met with Dr. Patterson about such and such, and my career took a whole 180. So you just don't know. And we just have to have faith that everything we do and keep going on, one step at a time. It's going to make a difference.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So what else is going on? Tell us anything else that you're excited about coming around the bend, or any patterns or trends you're seeing, or something you're kind of curious about. Would you like to share something else with us?
One of the things I'm really excited about is a Twitter chat that Dr. Wendy Ward from Arkansas and I have been hosting for the last couple of months on faculty affairs issues. It took us a little while to get this up and running. It kind of grew out of a group faculty affairs communication committee idea, but it's been really exciting to say, okay, it's been nerve-wracking. Wendy and I have done it a couple of times now, and I participated in Twitter chats, and I had no idea how challenging it was really to stand up one and moderate it. But it's been a lot of fun, and it's been exciting to begin to try to generate some real-time conversation. Because you're right, I think that GFA folks, my office now has 3 full-time, or at least 3 largely committed folks in it. So I now have somebody with me in my office, but this is our team. And I think many schools do have a smaller group, and the people at the next school actually have more in common with you, or are more able to understand your challenge and offer some solutions than maybe another department in your own institution is. And so to be able to try to start ongoing conversations and options for people to connect and share information, it has been exciting. So,
congratulations to you and Wendy. We just, had a steering committee call yesterday, and everybody just so pumped up about this. And I know it's a tremendous amount of work, and I'm going to be, confessing here that I'm a Luddite. I'm so old fashioned, and every year I forever will run into people. Used to be Harriet Hop, who just would, you got to get on Twitter. You got on Twitter. I was on Twitter for a minute. I still think I have a Twitter handle, but I'm like, I don't know to whom I should tweet. I don't get it. And so can you give us like a little, the dummy version of, for those of us who accidentally fell upon a podcast and figured out how to listen to a podcast, or like me, figured out how to do a podcast sitting here in my basement. How does that work? Can you try to describe for us first of all, what is Twitter? And then how does one do a Twitter chat? What does that look like?
Sure. So Twitter is a social media platform that allows you to share comments, to share links to resources, to share pictures, to share video, to share ideas. It's a great idea sharing platform, and you can use it asynchronously, or you can use it simultaneously. And if you're tweeting, you basically send your ideas out there into the Twitter sphere, and whoever is out there could find them and look at them. You can follow people, and you can have followers, and those people who are following you can see what it is you post. You can tag using some different strategies. You can tag ideas, you can tag other people and places, and then you can search for those tags and find ideas. So you might be able to search, for example, using a hashtag, you could search AAMC, and you could find a lot of different things around there. You can search faculty development, you can search mentoring, you can search he for she, and see a lot of things in the world of medicine and science that really give you an inside look into conversations people are having about men supporting women in the workplace. You can search many different ideas that way. I think a Twitter chat is a lot like having, it's a lot like texting with a large texting group, and you just don't know everybody who's on the group until they identify themselves. And so a Twitter chat is something that takes place at a place or time. And for us in our faculty affairs, when we're using the second Tuesday of the month, in the evening. So we announce a time we're going to get on. We announce a hashtag we're going to use. Ours is GFA Talks. And we pick a topic. The moderators pick some questions to help start the discussion. And anybody who's interested logs on to the Twitter platform, types in the hashtag GFA Talks, and we float a question and they start responding to the question. It can be a slow conversation or it can be a little racing conversation. It depends, and because people are responding all at the same time. So really it mimics a group discussion in a classroom without raising your hand. You just throw it out there. But that classroom's really large. So, and that classroom's really who chooses to join it. So, it could be anybody who's on there, but for us, most of the people who are on there do the same type of work we do. They're chats for medical education. They're chats for women in medicine. There are even groups who are using this as a journal club format. And you can then look at this later on in writing afterwards. So I'll post the transcript to the GFA listserv, and people can look at that and see if they couldn't participate or if they didn't catch all of it or they were struggling with the format. They could see what all the conversation looks like. But it's really a back and forth discussion. It just is a little bit slower, and it's in writing, and people are removed about it. But as a social media platform, it connects us. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I didn't know you were going to post the transcript. That is hugely helpful, because I'm sitting here thinking, and for those of you listening to this podcast, don't roll your eyes, or feel free to roll your eyes. I was thinking, gosh, can I just be one of these lurker people who just gets on the second Tuesday and watches this to see how it goes on? Like, I'm not going to get called out for, lurking and not saying anything, but in that and reading it on the listserv, that would, I think, be helpful for me to see, all right, I see what's going on here. I think I could do this or participate in this. And then I didn't know that you could tag these things and search back, because then I'm panicking thinking, well, if I'm going to be doing this, Twitter chat, do I have to keep a notebook and write these things down and screenshot? How am I going to capture all this stuff to remember this link or that resource? But I didn't even know about tagging and then searching later on. So thank you for sharing that.
It's great. People are sharing programs at their institution that maybe are accessible but might be hard to find if you Googled them. So they're posting, here's a link to a program we do at our school. That's on this topic, if anybody has questions or wants to take a look at it. We're posting articles. We're helping people. At least in ours, we're trying to draw some attention to resources. So part of what Wendy does and what I do is try to round up the resources we might share on the topic. This past week, we were talking about implicit bias in recruiting, and there's some really fascinating interactive maps on the AAMC website on the Women of Color Project, where you can look at your state and you can then import that into a slide if you're trying to do some programming at your own space with that kind of information in it. And so sometimes it's just nice to see what kinds of resources are shared. Sometimes you can ask a practical question. One of the ones that came up this week was, hey, I know we ought to be doing blinded CV reviews. How exactly do you do that? What are you doing when you're in a small specialty and it's easy to recognize the applicant? And people were sharing really concrete strategies, and sometimes the discussion's a little more global. But it's so hard to connect, I think, outside of a professional development conference with this group of people. And so it's really nice to have that kind of forum. And the listserv offers some. This is a real-time conversation. If I want to ask you a shorter question and I want to go back and forth for a few minutes on a question and a topic.
And then
so
how does the
that's been
conversation,
exciting.
You talked about moderating it. So what is the natural beginning and ending? And is in this giant classroom, is someone saying, oh, let's take that offline, or that'll be next conversation, or we're running about out of time? I mean, how do you moderate that, and how do you start it and stop it and close it and address all those people in the room, if you will?
to be honest, I'm still learning that. We're learning a little as we go, but the process we've adopted is to welcome people, to kind of give a heads up, 10 minutes, we'll get started. Welcome, here's the first question. And people take a moment and the answers start, and the answers are a back and forth and a question and other participants' question. We have a handle specifically for this called Fostering Faculty. So we have a Twitter account that Wendy and I share that is for this process. So we post from that, and then we go to our own handles and participate in the conversation. And it helps for one person to take the lead and drive the questions. And okay, it's time for another question. And it helps for someone else to float and help the conversation get started. It takes a few minutes, and once it gets started, we're a chatty group. Yeah. We're only limited by our thumbs and typing the response on the phone to engage in that, and we determine how long we think it's going to take, and then for each one of the questions, but it evolves as it goes, just as it would in any classroom discussion. And if you say, hey, we don't need a second question, we're here, or things are slowing down, people aren't still posting, let's go ahead and ask this question. And then you hit the time clock and you say, okay, we're officially done. And people sometimes keep interacting. But just like they would again in a classroom, they'd walk out the door and hopefully still have some good conversations as they go. But
Twitter
but you're welcome to lurk. It can be used for great things. And I promise, I don't think we're going to run into anybody. Most of us might not want to in a Twitter chat on faculty affairs. I really think you're safe there.
I love it. This is such great work. And I love these creative, unique ways of bringing us together. And like you said, real time or searchable later, off time. It's so valuable. Just sometimes, like you said, or you've been at a conference, you've heard, or you met somebody, you overheard somebody say this, that, and the other. But by the time you sit there and noodle around on, Bing or Google, you're like, it's exhausting. And then you get down that rabbit hole and you click on something interesting and you click, and you're 18 clicks deep and you forgot where you were going. And it's just so frustrating. Yeah. And it's always nice to remember that, GFA talks, the podcast, listservs that we, at a moment's notice, someone can point you in the right direction more efficiently. It's just really reassuring.
For me, I will tell you, I wasn't really sure about Twitter either, but in emergency medicine, open access online medical education offerings are very big. It's a growing part of ours, and for us, we had, as a faculty in emergency medicine, at least, we had to go there because the learners were. And so while we're, you and I are really comfortable with the traditional peer review process for written articles, but we aren't as familiar with critically assessing online resources and sources. And so you have learners today who go there first.
Right.
And if you don't engage in that, then you don't know how to tell them how to discern. You can't guide them in the space if you haven't spent a little time in the space. But the other thing that I noticed as I did move into faculty development in the year, in particular, I was interim, I was really trying to get to know a lot of our scientists because that isn't where I come from. So I needed to spend some time there. And I was surprised how many of them are communicating and using the platform to help other scientists get to know them as young scientists, and how much their information sharing within their discipline in Twitter. I mean, it for us here, that's one of the largest groups of faculty who are participating in it. So I thought, okay, we're going to have to get into this if this is where you are. And if you want to be recognized in this area, and this is a place where us institutionally patting you on the back is going to be valuable to you. Well, okay, here we go. we're gonna get a Twitter handle and give it a try. Right. And so that's how my office ended up getting a Twitter account, and it is someplace that I get feedback from my faculty, particularly my junior scientists, that they like to receive communication there, and they like to receive recognition there.
Another reason why we need diversity in all of its facets, including age and generation, that we have to have people who are telling us how they want to get the information, where they are. And like we had at Hopkins new faculty orientation just Tuesday. And so I love lurking and hanging around and kind of peering over new faculty's shoulders to see what they're doing and how they're doing, because everybody's got a device or a laptop or their phone. And I want to know, where are they getting their information? How are they communicating? What are they comfortable with? Because, you're right. We have to meet them there. And in fact, be better if we had people who could be ahead of them a little bit. So I know some offices have communication specialists and social media specialists explicitly for that purpose, that you can't rely on old-fashioned PowerPoints and the ways we disseminate information. All that is good, but we have to really round out the portfolio by, as you said, so aptly, that young faculty, they first go on the internet. They're Googling and they're going out looking at social media to get information first versus the way we get information. So we really have to be a little bit more creative and meet them where they are.
Yeah.
Super cool. I love the Twitter stuff. You've kind of gotten me excited about it. I was nervous because I really just don't know. Again, I always feel stupid. I go like, what am I going to say? And I always think of people just want to like see my dinner, or like when I first was, my family and friends were twisting my arm to join on Facebook, and I did 10, 15 years ago for a minute. And I'm like, all I'm seeing is food. Why is everybody just posting pictures of their food? I don't have time to show you my hamburger. So, and I quickly learned that, now it's passe, people just use it to share pictures of grandkids and kids and whatnot. So I can't keep up with this stuff. And I do just, again, confess to my ignorance. And, but it's something I know I'm stubborn about. And that's why I need diversity. I need people who are different from me, who have different ideas, and who can help nudge me and hold my hand and show me how we can do it. So thank you and Wendy for that great venue for us to talk to each other.
You're welcome. We're enjoying it.
So closing up here, Leigh, anything else you'd like to share with our family before we say goodbye?
No, I'm excited. I really appreciate getting a chance to talk about this today. I have really, really loved this career move. It's been a good 3 years so far, and I'm excited about it. So, thank you for giving me the chance to talk about it.
Yeah, I think people who are new to our field and our space love to hear stories of how people get here. And every story is different, because nobody goes to school and says they want to major in faculty affairs and faculty development. No. And the stories are just so wonderful, because they really show that we have a heart, and somehow we have this heart and a passion for helping other people. And so many of us come this way because we recognize that, oh my gosh, it feels good to support and help and encourage and inspire and motivate and just be there when people need something. And so that's, I think, what most of us land here just by virtue of wanting to do good. And they find out that this is a space to do that really makes a difference. And sometimes it doesn't seem like it, but I think we all know and can reassure each other that we are making a difference. So thank you, Leigh Patterson, the Associate Dean for Faculty Development at East Carolina University, the Brody School of Medicine. And thanks to everybody else out there listening to the Faculty Factory podcast. Please come back and join us again next time. Thanks for tuning in to Faculty Factory Podcast. The mission of the Faculty Factory is to build and support a community of leaders in faculty development who share tools, resources, wisdom, and encouragement in service to our faculty members, schools, and institutions. We encourage you to go to facultyfactory.org to find out more. Get in touch with me, ask me any questions. Maybe you want to be interviewed on the podcast. Thanks for tuning in to Faculty Factory Podcast. We'll see you next time. The Faculty Factory podcast and website is sponsored by the Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine Office of Faculty. For more information, visit facultyfactory.org.